Hello, welcome to TransByDef. My name is Morgan Fay, and this week's topic is do-it-yourself hormones. So we need to start off by saying it's always going to be dangerous if you do the do-it-yourself route, and it's also illegal. So you have to consider those factors before you decide whether or not that's the right way for you to go. I definitely recommend, I urge you that if you have the option of getting hormones through a physician, that's definitely your first and should be your only choice, because there's so many issues, so many worries with doing it yourself that it's just better to have a physician's advice and direction. But if you don't have that option, if the place you live doesn't have a physician that's knowledgeable to prescribe hormones, or who simply you just don't have anyone that's willing to work with someone who's transgender, or finances prohibit you from being able to do a lot of the doctor's visits, especially usually a first time visit. The initial visit is actually quite more expensive. Then do it yourself becomes an option that you can consider. So I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I'll tell you what I did. And that'll give you an idea of where my mind is on it, and what I think you have to do, in order to pursue who you are. So, in the beginning, I wasn't quite sure how long it'd be before I got a letter of recommendation from my gender therapist in order to begin HRT. So I couldn't wait, so I decided to do it yourself for as long as it would be until I began to see a physician. The idea of seeing a physician was always a goal, but it was something that would happen when it happens, and I wasn't going to wait until that time. So I made a few mistakes. It all worked out for me, but there's definitely some things that I would, from my experience, recommend that you do or you don't do. The first is that I never did blood tests while I was going, and that's very dangerous. I mean, you don't know what's really going on. I mean, you gotta feel for how you're feeling, how your body's reacting, but you really can't see your blood work. You can't really see how it's affecting your liver, and a lot of times you're only going to notice problems when it's already a major problem and you can't avoid it. Also, when you do decide to start going to a physician, they're not going to have initial blood work in order to see a starting point. And this was probably one of the biggest problems I had. Probably what made my physician most upset was that I never had that initial blood work. There's a lot of places around that are draw centers that you don't have to have any kind of prescription or a doctor's note in order to get blood work done. A lot of these places are also very affordable. Whether they're local clinics or, I go to a women's center which is got a draw station. It's more for elderly community, but I definitely benefit from it. And definitely look into it. You need to find out what's available, and you need to have that blood work done before you start HRT, and you should have it done every couple months while you're on it, especially anytime you change your dosage. The second thing I did, which was questionable, was I was very aggressive with my initial dosage. I started off with both spironolactone and estradiol at the same time. I started with a 4 milligram dosage of estradiol and 100 milligrams of spironolactone, and within a month and a half, I was up to 6 milligrams and 200 milligrams, and I was taking finestradine at the time as well. So my physician, he described it as dropping a bomb on it, that it was risky, and that I wouldn't necessarily have gotten as big of an effect as I thought I might have. Now, despite what he said, that's the 6 milligrams and 200 spiro is exactly what he's got me on. So, after he said all that, it's a lot of it. You did it really fast. He then prescribed me the exact same regimen I was on, so it was kind of a little justification there. But you definitely need to do regular blood tests and take a little patience. Don't do like I did. Make sure you step up more regularly, more gently, and make sure you have blood tests in between because you need to see exactly how it's affecting you. Um, Now, if do-it-yourself is the way you decide to go, um, not only is there the blood test to worry about, but you also need to consider some of the ramifications. First, you don't have legal prescriptions. Um, Getting them overseas is always risky. I do recommend the New Zealand-based company rather than pretty much anything else. You get a more reliable supply. You get a more reliable product. Some places are cheaper than that, but I've seen and I've had issues with them. So I definitely would only go with the New Zealand-based company. If you're looking for it, I'm sure it won't be that hard to find on the internet. So pick the company, and that's actually, you get what you pay for. So the cheaper you go, you have to question what you're going to be getting. So in addition to that, the prescriptions that come in from overseas, they can be held up by customs. They can even be seized by customs. So when you do order, you want to make sure that you always have about a 2 or 3 month supply as a backstock. You want to make sure that in case your next shipment gets interrupted or doesn't arrive, you want to make sure that it's not going to interrupt your hormone cycle. So you need to make sure that when you order, you always have at least about a 2 month supply on hand beyond what you're currently using. So definitely take that into consideration. You also don't want to set up the time you take your hormones where it's going to require you to carry them on you, because if you get stopped, those can be confiscated. Those can get you into trouble. So you want to leave them at home. You don't want to carry them with you. And this is assuming hormones such as estradiol and spironolactone for female to male people who are transitioning. Testosterone is a controlled substance, so it's not only going to be harder to get hold of, but you're facing severe criminal penalties if you get caught with it without a prescription. It's anabolic steroids for the most part. So you want to keep a backstock. You want to make sure that you don't have this stuff on you in case you do run into issues. And you want to make sure that you do regular blood tests and that you step up gradually if doing it yourself is the direction you want to go, and only do that for as long as it's necessary until you can actually get these prescribed by a physician. It's always going to be safer in a lot of ways in order to go that route, and sometimes you might have to drive a little bit further, especially if you're not in a community that is very large and that has any kind of physicians that will work with transgender persons. But it's got to be your long-term goal. You don't want to be doing it yourself your entire way. There are certainly people who have done so and it has gone just fine for them, but there's also a lot of people that have had issues. So when you want to go on HRT, I think it's critical. HRT is the most important part of my transition. So if I were to run into a situation where, for instance, my physician just stopped prescribing it to me, I'd be ordering in a heartbeat, and I still keep a couple months backstock just in case. So, but you have to also understand my mindset is that, I'd rather die as a woman than spend another day, living that lie as a man. So, I understand that there can be dire consequences, and I'm willing to accept that. But I still have a physician now. My prescriptions are still prescribed. So everything is as it's supposed to be. Now, the last thing I want to say, on going out is sometimes you don't have the option to find someone who's going to prescribe these, and do it yourself becomes the only option. And if you find yourself in that situation, you're not sure what to do, I would say go for it. I would go ahead and get them overseas and take care of yourself, because that dysphoria, that depression that comes along with it, is, in my opinion, more damaging than what those hormones can do to you in a short term. But make sure that you look for a way that you'll be able to have some sort of physician guidance in the future. And online websites for people who do it yourself, there's a lot of information out there. Of course, it's not tailored to you, so you have to take it with a grain of salt. And there are a number of clinics that will work with you online. You actually do your blood test local, send it to them, and then they will actually prescribe it for you. There's one place that's actually in Tampa that does that, and I'm sure there's other places across the country. So look into that option as well. So that is all for this topic on do-it-yourself hormones. I am Morgan Fay, and I hope to see you here next week on TransByDef.